In this session, we are going to look at the overview of software development tasks. When it comes to developing software, there are so many challenges. First of all, we have to overcome the technical complexity, and also we have the business challenges. There are another set of challenges we face due to the project nature of software development. We have to meet the deadlines, we have to meet the budgets, and finally, we all know that software development is an evolving area. So the technologies are also evolving. So therefore, a lot of risk involved. So when you are developing software, we have to address all those challenges. When it comes to developing software, there are certain tasks we have to do. And also we can do those tasks in different ways. And we call them software development methods. For example, we have the agile approach, the DevOps approach. So whatever the method we use, the development tasks are there. So therefore, it's very important we understand the development tasks separately from the software development methods. Now let's look at the overview of the software development activities. So we can identify 7 major tasks: the planning or the preliminary investigation, the requirement analysis, design, development, testing, deployment, and evolution and maintenance. So we are going to look at each of the tasks at overview level, because in subsequent sessions we are going to look at each in more detail. So let's first look at the planning or the preliminary investigation and feasibility study tasks. There are some sub activities we do in this preliminary investigation or planning. First of all, we have to understand the business problem or the opportunity that we are trying to solve. And also we have to verify whether is it a real problem or real opportunity. So then we can come up with some ideas or possible solutions. And some of these solutions may involve introduction of a new system. And some other solutions may involve changes to the business process or management practices. If the solution involves acquiring a new system, it's very important that we check the feasibility or doability or the practicality of the introduction of new system. So it involves checking the technical feasibility, the financial feasibility, and even aspects like checking the operational and cultural feasibility. Then we have to look for possible options in acquisition. If it is a typical usage for a small to medium scale organization, we can go for built-in software like accounting packages, point of sale systems, etc. But if you are looking for a unique solution, we have to go for custom software development. There we will either decide to build homegrown solution or we go for outsourcing. And in modern world, most of the time we go for outsourcing. And the next task is doing the detailed planning. So if we go for outsourcing, the planning process is pretty much done by the software development company with the collaboration of the client. The next task that we are going to look at is requirement analysis. So the objective of requirement analysis is understand the requirement and possibly document it. So we can identify some subtasks. First of all, we need to gather the requirement. So this is especially critical if the software development is done by a different company. So then we need to analyze the requirement. So this is where we properly understand the requirements. There are some techniques like we want to break it down and understand it, and then we want to understand how these things are interrelated. And also we can look at the general cases and specialized cases. Another important task is modeling the requirements. A model is an abstract representation of anything that we are interested. So abstract means the minimum essential. So then we need to document the requirements as well. When it comes to modern software development methodologies, the emphasis is make it simple, short and clear. We don't go for very detailed documentation because we are developing software in short cycles. And the final task that we are looking at is the verification of requirement. This is extremely important if the software development is done by a third party, because the models and other documents are our understanding of the client's requirement. So it is always good to show it back to the customer and get their consent. If you are developing a simple thing, we can straight away start developing it. But when it comes to developing complex things, we always design and go to the development. So designing is coming up with solution and modeling it. So the design involves two main steps. First, we have to decide on the architecture. There are different software architectures available. So we have to pick the best architecture that suit for our requirements. Then we can go to the detailed design. When it comes to detailed design, we may design different aspects separately. For example, we can do the user interface design, the data design, the program designs, and system integration designs. So then we have to do the development. So we have to develop the user interfaces, develop the database aspects using SQL and other languages. And of course, we have to develop the business flows and other logic. And also we have to do the integration with other systems. Let's look at another important task in software development, the testing. Testing is verification the product against the requirements or objectives. We can identify two types of testing approaches, the glass box or the white box testing and the black box testing. So if you are testing with the awareness of the internal structure, we call it glass box testing. So glass box testing is typically done by the developers while they are developing. If you are testing the system without concern about the internal structure, we call it black box testing. So there we just check for the correct input, are we getting the correct output? So typically the latter part of testing is black box testing. So there are different testing we have to do. So first type of testing we look at is unit testing. So while we are developing certain units or modules, the software developers parallelly start testing those functionalities, and those are often glass box testing. So then we want to see whether our units or modules are properly getting integrated. So that is called integration testing. Integration testings are also mostly glass box testing. So then we have to test the system as a whole. So that is typically done by quality assurance engineers, and they are mostly black box testing. And finally, before giving release of the system or the features, we have to do user acceptance testing. So this is done by the end users. And if they are happy, the system or the release will be accepted. Another important aspect of software development is deployment or implementation. It is extremely important if we are developing a critical system like a banking system, airline reservation system. So we can identify a few subtasks. We have to prepare the site for the deployments, and also then we have to deploy it. We have to do some user trainings if it is a complex functionality or big system, and also we have to come up with a strategy for startup. So there are different strategies like direct startup, parallel startup, phase startup, and pilot startup. It all depends on the amount of risk we can take and also the criticality of the system. And the final task that we are going to look at is the software evolution, maintenance, and reviews. When it comes to some other areas in engineering, mostly we concern about maintenance. For example, when you build a vehicle, we are more interested about the maintenance. When you build a power plant, we are more interested about the maintenance. But when it comes to software, so we do evolution and maintenance. So there are two reasons for that. Most of the time we are developing software for business organizations. They are in a high competition. So therefore they are keep looking for improvements, new features, modifications, and so on. So therefore we have to do those changes, improvements continuously. And the second reason is software is a conceptual product. So therefore it's relatively easy to do changes. The evolution involves adding new features, doing some changes, doing some improvements, and so on. So then of course we have to do the day-to-day maintenance activities like user management, monitoring, the backup and recovery. So that kind of typical tasks we have to do when it comes to software as well. And finally, we have to do reviews. The periodic reviews are the places where the customers come up with modifications, improvements, and other ideas. And also, there will be a day where the customers say this system is below our expectation. We need to do some considerable change or we have to go for a new system. If you are not doing those periodic reviews, we will lose those important aspects. So in this session, we discuss the overview of the software development activities. So these activities are not necessarily done in sequence. In the modern software development approaches, we can do those things with a lot of overlapping. How are we going to do those things together is another discussion. So that is where we have the software development methodologies like agile approach, the DevOps approach. So in later sessions, we will look at each of these software development activities in detail, and also we will look at the software development methodologies in a separate session. If you feel like this session is interesting and important for you, make sure you like it and also make sure you subscribe so that you will get the notifications for future sessions.